and begin. All right, so hopefully you can hear me. You can. Good. I can hear or I can see the green. I apologize to those of you that I'm 12 minutes late. I was out in the yard just working away. I'm like, it's got to be about 2 o'clock. I didn't have my watch on. Not my usual, not my typical either to do that. But I had this little thing in the back of my head going, you might want to check and see what time it is. And I'm like, yeah, you're fine. It's like 2:15. Anyways, I got a lot of yard work done today. I do want to dive into chapter 7. This is actually a really good one. I listened to the whole book twice months ago, and going back through this chapter over the last 2 days, little bits and pieces, and kind of writing my own notes, I really feel like this is a really powerful, important chapter. And it really, I mentioned this before in another one of our other chapter reviews, that I believe that when you heal triggers, when you heal those things that family can ignite into us, right? The negative emotions, when we heal that piece, when we're able to be around that person or those family members and individuals with being un-triggerable, I feel like that's the sweet spot. That's where we're really free. And this chapter goes into to it, and in this phase, it says it in different ways and un-triggerable, but other people's emotions, other people's emotional reactions says more about them than you, hands down, right? So how they react, how they respond is their triggers. It's for them to work on. It's in their lane, is what I like to say. So how people respond, how they react, and what they do and what they say and what their body language is all to do with them and not you. We human beings, each of us as individuals, only have enough bandwidth or energy to manage our own emotions. Now, I might get some feedback, some comments, some thoughts and opinions and viewpoints on that, and that's okay. That's great. But what I do know to be true is when we start to manage other people's feelings, when we start to dictate how other people think, act, behave, what they say, what they do around us, we get really lost. We lose ourselves because we're out there using our energy to fix and make everybody be a certain way so we feel safe, so we feel happy. And I think that culturally, I think in our society, I think that we get it backwards. We get into a space of believing that once everybody in my household, or once everybody that I come in contact with on a daily or weekly basis, when they all are all happy and feeling good and safe and insecure, then I feel safe and secure, then I feel happy. And that's way too much to manage. It's impossible, truthfully. Again, we only have the bandwidth and the emotions to manage our own emotions, right? We can only work with what's within us. And oftentimes in coaching, a lot of my clients want to fix and resolve things outside of their sphere of influence or outside of their control, right? I want my boss to talk nicer to me. I want my spouse to be nicer to me and respect me and listen to me or whatever. And that's way outside of your lane. Focus on internal, focus on yourself. Our emotional intelligence, for some people, like I know a couple of people, when I was rereading this chapter and reflecting on it again, she talks about, I think the doctor talks about they're emotionally stunted at age 6 or whatever. And I talk about that a lot in coaching. I say age 8, roughly the same age, right? Age range is that some people, they stop growing emotionally and shift to autopilot around 6 or 8 years old. And I know that I see that. I hear that in coaching clients privately, confidentially. I hear their voice change. And it's almost like this childlike voice, things that they say, and they kind of throw temper tantrums, and it's not fair, and just like finger pointing and blaming and complaining. And it's just like a little kid coming out. And because they have emotionally stopped maturing at a certain age. I say 8 and 6 or whatever, is to be funny almost in a way, because me too. Like, I really feel like there was a large part of my life that I stopped growing emotionally. I started reacting to life. And when we're reacting to life, we stop growing emotionally, right? We're thinking and believing that all things externally are creating emotions inside of us, thinking and believing that things outside of us are making us happy and sad, and that's getting it backwards. Mel describes, when we allow other people's immaturity to dictate our choices, we will always come last in our life. And I do believe this to be true. This is your life, whatever you believe, if there's another life or whatever, an afterlife and all these other things, that's great. That's amazing. Let's focus on here and now and today. And this is your life, and you have a lot of choice in this life, in all situations and circumstances. It's about taking ownership. It's about taking responsibility for, again, your lane, within your lane, within your control. And again, you only have the emotional bandwidth and responsibility to navigate and regulate your own emotions. It's prioritizing how you want to feel every single moment of every single day. And the only way you're able to do that is to be off of autopilot, is to be consciously aware or awake or alert, or there's many other terms and verbiage that's used out there. When we prioritize other people's feelings, again, we lose ourselves in the process. I've coached so many people now, and it's heartbreaking when I meet somebody in their 50s and 60s and they literally do not know what food they like, what music they like, what movies they like, because they've prioritized other people's feelings. Typically, I see this in moms of lots of children, or nurses or first responders, that they're just pouring so much into other people that they lose themselves in managing so many other people's emotions or needs. So they aren't managing and navigating their own needs. In fact, their health is eroded away. Like, their health is really, really bad. One of the sayings that I actually used it in a coaching session yesterday. Once in a while I use it when I feel like it's useful. But the one that came up when I was, again, going over this chapter was, I'm rubber and you're glue. What you say bounces off of me and sticks to you, is kind of what I thought of for this chapter quite a lot. It's being resilient and unaffected by other people's words. Okay, so like my client yesterday, she's like, I want a whole session just on that. And I'm like, okay. It was just something I said in short at the end of our session. And I was like, yeah, we could do a whole session on that. Like, it's really a fun thing to explore and pick apart. I think one of the greatest gifts that you can give someone is the space to process their emotions, to move through, lean into their emotions, whether that be sadness or grief or fear or anger or frustration, allowing them to move fully through them. I did not know this raising my kids. The bug in here. I did not know that raising my kids, and I wish I would have known that. And of course, Mel offers a lot of stories and suggestions. I think in this chapter is about the Legos, right? And me too, I wouldn't navigate that well. In fact, I didn't take my kids out in public hardly at all. I was like, yep, I'm gonna go to the store, get what I need, and get out. Very rarely did I take my kids out in public. It just, I don't know. I just didn't. And if you can manage and navigate that in a way I think that's great. Although did that do them a service? I'm not sure. I think that they're amazing, incredible human beings. They're adults and they're living their lives. Uh, but I have held space for my daughters. In fact, the story that I used a few weeks ago, I believe it was, with the airplane story, taking her to the airport. The second time I took her to the airport, I sat there, I looked in my rearview mirrors, both of them, looking for security. And I just sat there at the front of the airport where you're not supposed to park. But I just sat there and let her move through the entire emotions. I don't know how long it took. I want to say it was a good 5 minutes, maybe 8 or 9 or 10. I don't know. Like, I really just sat there and let her let it all out. Say what she needed to say, do what she needed to do, let all the tears, let all the screaming, let all the everything out. Years and years ago, I would have not allowed that. I would have been an idiot. Like Mel talks about, just shut it down. That's not allowed. Get control of yourself. That's unacceptable. And I see such value in that now, being able to hold space for somebody and let them move through their feelings. But I didn't know, and as Mel talks, she didn't know either. So she talks about a family member that bothers her and drains her to the point, and then she pointed out that they constantly make everything about them and want attention, and endless ways of bringing back the spotlight to them. I think we all had pictures of people that we can, that fits that bill in our life. But that person, something that she doesn't go into on this chapter, kind of was a miss, I think, an opportunity, something that she could have went deeper in. And again, I know this is, I don't know, the 13th version or whatever of this book. And so maybe there were cuts that had to be made, and this might have been one of them. But that person, those people that you think of, images in your mind of those people that fit that description of takes the spotlight and the attention, doesn't have the power to inject those feelings of draining or frustration or irritation into anyone. It's not possible. Again, I know I use the saying, "What I'm rubber, you're glue." What you say, bounces off me and sticks to you, but that also pertains to what they're saying. It pertains to what they're doing in a situation, a family event where they're getting all the attention. They can't make you feel any certain way. That again is a trigger, and that's something for you to work on. So that annoyance is a trigger, right? That's all it is. It's creating a feeling in you. There's a judgment there, and that's something to work on. I think about it. Well, yeah, think about it in this way. If that is a family member, let's say, and you're at a family event and there's 20 people there, and you're the one that's getting annoyed by this person's behavior, look around the room. There might be 5 or 10 other people that aren't being annoyed. So again, it's not universal. It's not gravity, right? That this person is annoying and obnoxious to everybody in the room, all the 19 other people. So what's the judgment here? What's the fear? What is it that you're getting triggered by? So that's something to work on. That's a you thing that's in your lane. Mel goes on to talk about her psychologist that describes emotional maturity of an 8-year-old. Again, I kind of talked about that, which makes it easy to activate. Oh yeah. So when we view that person that might be annoying or difficult to deal with, when we look at them through the lens of they're an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old, that activates empathy and compassion. And I know that I experienced that I'm in a homeowners association, and there are individuals that do act like 6 and 8-year-olds. Like, they throw temper tantrums, and I just look at them through the lens of what happened to them. That's a wonderful book by Oprah Winfrey. What happened to you, I think is the name of the book. It's a great book. I think about that, and I think about, again, their emotional maturity is maybe that of a 6 or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, whatever. So it does activate compassion in me. It activates what happened to you, what's going on here, what is weighing on your mind, what's your struggles, what has you behaving this way. And I don't need to know why, right? You notice I'm not using the word why, because that's none of my business. I just know that there's a lot going on there. And so I love that let them and then let me really allows us to learn what's in our lane, learn what we want to manage and what we actually really truly have control over. Because when we get into a place of wanting things to be different that's outside of our lane, we get lost, we get overwhelmed, we get stressed out, we get anxious. And these are all things that aren't in our lane. It's not in our control. So when we really peel back to what is in our sphere of influence, what we can manage, what we can navigate, it really simplifies things. And that's what I do a lot when working with individuals, is simplifying their life, really keeping things that I say is stupid simple, just because it's funny. But it really peels back and really takes a lot off of their plate. In my life, in my own experience, I was not modeled emotional regulation at all. So again, I worked with my tools, what I knew growing and raising my children, right? I worked off of what I knew, and I knew that I was going to do everything opposite of what I was taught as a kid. But my past doesn't define me. I wanted to do better. I wanted to do differently. And so I chose to do things differently and understand myself and understand the needs of my children at a deeper level. I also believe in becoming very emotionally independent. And what I mean by that is, and that it's kind of a newer term that I've heard only recently. And I know that there's, I think, a psychologist or several books out on it, but being emotionally independent means that you can self-regulate, means that you, again, manage your own feelings. It's really being able to navigate what's happening externally in your life, people, places, things, situations, and circumstances in a way that you're able to navigate them successfully, independently, not needing anybody to regulate you, not needing or depending or being codependent on anyone to help you change how you feel in that moment. It's really understanding where your feelings come from. So when we're being reactive, I believe we're on autopilot, right? We're really depending on old wiring, conditioning, beliefs, programmings from our past. Autopilot means you're not fully consciously aware. It means you're not fully awake. You're not fully alert in this moment. And that's why I keep mentioning self-regulation. So in my work with individuals, it's really learning to activate one of your five senses. I don't care what it is that you do. It's having the tools and the know-how and knowing how to self-regulate yourself. What works for you? Which sensory sight, smell, taste, feel, hearing, what is most alive in you? What allows you to slow down and be very present in the moment most? Food is such an amazing regulatory instrument because it activates all of our senses. And so I feel, and it really massages the vagus nerve, but you can find other things, right? Food is great. I love really spicy gum or really sour candy that has you fighting for your life. That is a sensory regulating tool. I heard about that years ago from a therapist that specializes in anxiety, and she really encourages her patients to get spicy gum or really sour candy and have it with them all the time. And when they start, because she claims that people that have chronic anxiety can almost see it coming. It's like this big train or this big cloud that's coming. They can, once they understand it more and get really sensory regulated and understand how their body works, they start to see it sooner and sooner and sooner, and sometimes even a day before it even happens. So she really encourages them as one of the many tools to have is that. And I have smelly stuff in my car my husband hates. I have fidget spinners. I have all kinds of things, all kinds of tools and all kinds of things to regulate myself. But it's really learning what works for you and using it on small things to be able to use those tools and hopefully have ways to navigate and regulate yourself without having to have gum or candy, things that you can do with just your body. But again, being reactive is you're on autopilot. You're using old blueprints, old wiring that's ingrained in you, and a lot of times they're very old programming. I believe life is meant to be lived and feeling and experiencing it in 3D. I believe that life also is meant to be experiencing all the emotions, right? All the way, love to fear, all the way, and everything in between. If we all had a choice, we would probably all choose love 100% of the time. Right? If that is the ultimate, the best top shelf feeling, I think that we'd all want to choose love all the time. But that's not the way life is. We're going to experience grief. We're going to experience heartache and heartbreak and all the feelings, fear and anger and all the things. Silent treatment was talked about a lot in this chapter. For me, that's not something that I'm aware of. You know, I'm sure there's probably people in my life like, oh yeah, you've done the silent treatment thing, but I am happy to lean in and discuss something that's needing to be aired and follow my own sword, offer an apology, whatever needs to be said or done to mend or repair something that I've done or been perceived to have been done. I'm happy to own that. I do know of individuals that love to avoid. And if you know positive intelligence, they have a high avoider tendency to themselves. My self avoider is at the very bottom, which is fine. Everybody's different. To me, I'm like, no, 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 no. I know when I avoid things, they get bigger and bigger and it becomes a bigger problem. So, yeah. So just like yesterday, I had someone reach out to me inquiring about coaching. And what's interesting is her inquiry was, I want you to fix my husband. In short, it was very long. And she name called him. He's very lazy. He's lying to me. I want you to change him. I want you to fix him. That was kind of the short version of it. Which is interesting because I believe that that message came to me out of anger. I think that message came to me out of frustration. And as the book, this chapter talks about, I think it's Dr. Ramani, probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but yeah. Hoping someone will change is what keeps you trapped in a relationship with someone who is emotionally immature or worse, emotionally abusive. So yeah, this is, again, nothing to do with you. It has something more to do with that person that's not changing, right? So what I think, and I don't know, this gal sent me this big, huge thing. I don't know what's really going on. For me, my initial thought is she needs coaching, you know, rather than him. Because likely she's the one that's approaching me. So she sees the value in coaching, likely. He probably doesn't want anyone to fix him. He probably doesn't see anything wrong with him. He's probably buckling down, and you know, you see me as lazy. He's like, I'll show you, right? So again, I feel like she has a lot of choice, a lot of options, and she may not see them all because she's in this tunnel vision of anger and fear and frustration and whatever. The paradox of wanting someone to change is, of course, she's wanting to be happy, right? Or feel better or feel complete. She's wanting things to be different. But here's the reality is he may change and she's going to find something else to ruminate on. That's why I think that she's a prime candidate for coaching, because when you're wanting something, you're desiring something externally, you're craving something, you're expecting something, and you're believing that when this changes, I will be happy. Then that's a misconception. Again, it's wanting the external world to change to make you happy. I will be happy when. Again, it's this person that messaged me is a prime candidate for coaching. She can navigate this in a way that if she shifts her energy in that relationship, he may or may not change. And I would encourage her to find peace and harmony in her life, and he may follow or he may move on, right? Again, she probably, not knowing everything, she probably has a lot of options and choices that she's just not seeing because she's blinded by fear and anger. People do not change until within themselves they deeply want to change, where they see it as important, right? They're taking on, people want to change because of their deep desire, right? Sometimes they hit rock bottom, but they want to have agency, they want to have autonomy, they want to have choice, they want to be in choice, they want to be the one that's shifting their life, because change is very difficult, believe it or not. Change, I, again, working with individuals, make it simple. Is it easy? No, but I make it simple. Okay, so when we use manipulation, like the gal that emailed me, we manipulate, we force people, you go to this coach or else. I'm not saying that's what she's saying, but let's say she is giving ultimatums or whatever. It's not going to create lasting, loving, sustainable change, right? It's going to create more heartburn in the relationship, more resentment, more destruction in that connection, that bond, whatever's left in that relationship. He's going to see it as, I'm broken, I'm not good enough, I'm wrong, I'm bad, I'm whatever. Mel puts, instead of expecting other people to change and demand that they change, like this gal, I would like to add that, it's understanding what, again, is within your control. Let go of those things that are outside of your control. Really work on yourself, okay? Because a lot of times, like this gal, I don't know a lot about the scenario, but what is it within you that sees him as needing to change, be different? I'd also like to add, in relationships, focusing in on what you admire and appreciate about someone really will activate. So here's an example. Let's say with this gal that messaged me, all she sees right now is he's lazy, he's lying, he's deceptive, he's this, he's that, and all these different things. She's looking at him through the lens of him being broken, wrong, not good enough, right? But when she drifts to, what ends up happening is the brain loves that. The brain loves negative bias. The brain loves seeing what's bad or wrong in the world. It's going to lean into that. And what it ends up happening is then again, that's all you see. But if we shift to, what do you love and admire and appreciate? What are you grateful for in this person that you've married, right? She even said you're married to him. I don't think they've been married long, based on kind of something else that she said. But what ends up happening is when you lean into what you're grateful for and what you appreciate about somebody, is that it really activates those strengths in that person, because they want to show that to you more. It really has this amazing shift in a dynamic. So that works with any relationship, your kids, no matter how old they are, maybe your aging parents or your friends or whatever. But when you lean into anybody and you're like, what I really admire about you is your ability, your strengths, and your skills that are X, Y, and Z, just randomly, just appreciation and gratitude for them in your life, and what you really what their skills and what their talents are that you truly, genuinely, authentically admire. They end up, it really kind of like reinforces that in their mind, and they want to show that to you more, versus you're lazy, you're what ends up happening is it reinforces that. Okay, well, I'm just going to be lazy because that's who I am, that's who you see me as. And it's funny how we human beings do that. So again, focus on those people in our lives' strengths. It empowers them to go deeper into that. I'm almost done. I got 2 more paragraphs. The relationships we have to our emotions, our own emotions. So that relationship, what we think and believe about our own emotions, is really, really important. Okay, so when we, here's what and she talks about this a little bit in this chapter about how our emotions, so I want to say they lost 90 seconds or 60 seconds, one of the, yeah. Okay, so it's really seeing that to be true in your own life, noticing that, and noticing and acknowledging when you do have any emotion, good, bad, high, low, whatever you want to label it, and the ones that stay around longer. Noticing, becoming aware of what is fueling that to stay around longer, right? Are you um, ruminating on it? Are you colluding? Meaning, are you talking to friends and family or social media and getting people to jump on your side and your bandwagon and going, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that person is so mean to you. What that does is it's reinforcing it, right? It's keeping that fire flame going. It's keeping it longer, stronger, reinforcing it. So just notice. And so for me, it's like, what are the feelings that I like to stay in? And I love to have fun. I like to have enjoyment. I like to feel light and free. So how do I do that? How do I add fuel to those fires and keep that brewing? So yeah, just looking at the last time you've had a negative emotion, how long it lasted. Did it last longer than 90 seconds? What was happening that reinforced that feeling? What kept that fire going for days or weeks or months, maybe years or decades, right? Sometimes working with new clients, I'll see that they have been in this space for a very long time, and it's because they band together people around them and hold these people in their sphere to reinforce that negative belief, right? Keeping that going, that, oh, this happened to me, so that makes me be this, right? It reinforces that identity, and it's like bubble wrap around you that keeps it in place. And it's an unfortunate pattern and a loop that can be broken, can be changed. And then I guess the last thing that I want to add is really everyone's doing the best that they can. Again, raising my own daughters, I wish I knew what I know today. I would have, done things so much differently. But everyone's doing the best that they can with what they know and what they understand in each and every moment. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, good or bad, or worse or better. It's just, it's acknowledging that. And they might be a 6-year-old in an adult's body that's navigating life in the best way they know how. And so it's really about, how do we get more, how do we have more compassion for people, and how do we show that? And it's interesting. I have explored one tiny last thing, and I'll let you pop off, and what you're hearing and what you've learned is, I've really played a lot lately with my husband about the, who's right. And it's funny when you can really see in conversations, small little things. We both have a very strong personality. We're both wanting to be right. And so lately, just because I want to be playful with it, I'm like, who's right? And he's like, I'm always right. And I'm like, I know you are. And we just laugh. And I'm just bringing a light to it. I'm just bringing a funniness to it, a silliness to it. And I'm noticing that we're both releasing. We're both not gripping so hard on wanting to be right. And it's just this playfulness, and he's bringing it into conversations too. He's like, what were you right on today? Just silliness that we can both see where we are wanting to be right, and how that's it's not necessary. It's letting go of that. It's being less gripped with that righteousness. And I would have never, ever, ever, ever thought that I was a righteous person. And I think Mel talks about that in this chapter, not the righteousness, but how she used to be a certain way and never would have recognized that. And nobody obviously said it probably to her, or if they did, it just, she didn't hear it. And same with me. I look at back and I'm like, gosh, I was a little bit righteous, actually a lot, and wanting to be right all the time. But it's fun to see that and being okay with it and going, how can I grow past that? How can I learn from it? How can I see it quicker, faster before I say things or before I do things that might be me trying to put myself in a position of being right? It's interesting. I love this chapter. And Gina, I appreciate you being here and even being so late. But I want to hear from you what your takeaways are.
No problem about being late. I was
Oh, can't hear
actually
you.
worried. I'm like, no, for sure, she's already
Bugging me. Hang
started.
on, hang on. Let me see here. Double triple check. So the speaker, yeah, it should be good. Say something.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I know why. I'm gonna turn this off. Okay. No? Say something.
Hello, hello.
Nope. There we go. It's working. All right.
Yay,
Yay.
success.
Technology.
Yeah, no, so yeah, I no problem about being late. I was just more worried. I'm like, there's no way that this did, because it's like waiting for for the
Thank you
host
for
to start the meeting. And I was like, there's no way that you're not there. So I'm glad you were fine and having a great time gardening. I love it. This chapter to me is very interesting. I have to really quick ask about this being right. So my husband and and she talks about it at the end about just being in control. Do you think that there is a correlation between being right and being in control?
absolutely 100%.
Yeah, because I don't mind, because I often say like I don't know, but I think my husband loves to point out, and it's like just little comments like, well, of course, I know how to do it when you don't, and I'm like, well, I've never claimed I need to do it, but it's fascinating with like it's more of for me, it's more control. For him, it's just to point out that he knows all the things, but it's fascinating about just personalities. Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Right. And if you can, just start noticing, and it's not about keeping score. That's not what I'm aiming towards, because that's destructive. It's just being playful with
Yeah.
it in a way that's I
Agree.
personally like to work on myself and just vocalize it like, oh, look at me, I'm trying to be right here. That's what
Yeah.
I focus in on, and not about him. And that's where the playfulness comes in.
Yeah, no, I love that. I will definitely borrow that. I really resonate a lot with the chapter bits because I think that as I do my own self work and being, maybe I'm at 9 instead of 8 or 6, but I think that honestly, my parents, where I love just being that victim for the longest time, it's because my parents are really stuck at 6 or 8, and I think they are doing the best they can, but they are also just 6 and 8, and I think that my disappointment is where I'm just the most where my that is my feeling of just disappointment. But I did so many like underlining and stars of this chapter. And I do like your notes a lot about how, I'm that person who doesn't know who I am because I've always like, wherever you want to eat for dinner. I don't know what my favorite color is. Just really, I like this chapter a lot. Talk to me because I did just more, just like you said, there are a lot of moms and being a first responder family, like we just did for others. And I just, and as I unwind this, so like, we know my kids are leaving the home and they don't need me. Like, what am I going to do with my free time? Who am I? And so this book really talks about when you are making sure that other people are our priority, you have no idea who you are. So I really enjoy that a lot. But my biggest, like, I really folded the page when it was talking about, repressing the feelings. This chapter was really a very large, broad, a lot of information going from we're all 8-year-olds or 6-year-olds to our emotions only last 90 seconds. And I was not taught, just like you, about emotional, the wheel, like the different words. Are you going to feel them? I was told you don't have them, you shut them down. They're not allowed. And of course, then I copied and pasted, and that same thing for my children. Um, and I love that you did that in the airport, letting your daughter for her whatever 8 to 10 minutes or whatever it was. But according to this book, it says it's 90 seconds, which I find fascinating because mine are way longer. And it's because I also ruminate on them and make them a thing because I love the drama and the umbrella, that I make sure I bring my own, rain cloud with me because I love the drama. And so I choose to keep them longer than the 90 seconds. And so that was really great, just insight. And I love Dr. Ramani. I actually heard her on another podcast a couple weeks ago, and I've and now have a screenshot of her book to maybe read. Um, and so I think that that's very interesting. I think that I'm just moving through the emotions instead of trying to take control of the situation is my biggest takeaway of this chapter. That was my biggest page fold. But really letting to let others manage their emotions is said repetitively in this chapter, and I wrote it many times in my notes, because I really think that that is a Shayna thing, that I really do try to make sure everybody's okay, and then I can be okay. And I'm not sure where I picked that up in my upbringing, but that has been my role for the longest time in friend groups and other mommy groups, in my own family, my core four. Like I make sure that everybody's okay, and then I'll address how I'm feeling. And so for me, really trying to just that is not my responsibility. My kids are legal adults. I don't have to manage anybody's emotions. Is really very empowering. And I like this chapter a lot for that. But at least she covered a lot of things in this one chapter. And it feels just really about broad stroke. So I really enjoyed this chapter a lot.
Yeah, that was a beautiful summary of what really stood out for you. I think addressing the whole who am I read somewhere, it's been a while, but it was suggested to go on a vacation solo, like truly go somewhere where nobody that you know is, and really, and they didn't say how long, and I think that's subjective, but it's really about going out, eating, experiencing art, music, whatever it is, figuring it out. What is it that you enjoy and you like? And it's almost like kind of forces you to go and experience, do the spa, don't do the spa. What do I do? It's really about getting outside of the comfort zone, getting into some discomfort and figuring out, did I like that? Did I not like that? Really being with yourself. And yeah, and it's almost kind of like forces you outside of your bubble. So I really love that suggestion.
Yeah, I did it when the kids were maybe like double digits, and I knew John could, be in charge of them for a weekend. I just went to Santa Barbara. I was like 35-minute drive from Solvang. It wasn't far, but I cried a lot. I mean, I read a journal and a book, and I was so uncomfortable. And even like now at 45, and did this probably 15-ish, 15 years ago. I was so uncomfortable because I'm so rarely alone.
Yeah.
I'm with a kid, or I'm working, or even if I'm working from home, there's someone with me, like, or I'll make sure my calendar is very full. So I'm always seeing people. I just don't do well being alone. Very self-imposed. Like I love people, and it helps me just not be with my own thoughts. And so I remember going and just like sitting in a restaurant and like basically like adding myself to the couple next to me, like, hi, I see you're having date night. What are you up to? I mean, I just inserting myself, and it was terrible, but I felt that was so odd sitting there by myself eating dinner. I brought a book to dinner because I didn't know what to do with myself. My husband could go have dinner and go to the movies. Like he's cool. He doesn't care. It doesn't bother him. It doesn't phase him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I'm just too much of a people person where I'm uncomfortable in my own skin being by myself. But I left that experience thinking that was the worst thing ever. But now, like literally days ago, I printed off just a whole bunch of like Google research and Chat GPT on like hobbies because I do want to figure out what it is I like. Is it, peppermint ice cream? Is it, Mexican food versus Italian? Like whatever. But like truly like hobbies, like who am I? And just having the best, like it was easier to say no. Like I do not want to go, rock hopping, and I do not want to, go spelunking. And it was great. So I just, I printed off all this stuff, and it was easy to say no. And I'm left with like 15 maybes to try, but I have made sure that everyone else has been our priority. And this is like part of like Shayna's newest, like, evolution is like, who am I? And I'm very excited to find it.
That's fun. Oh, I
Yep.
love that. I love that you have the list of hobbies to explore, right? And seeing it as that, as this is an exploration and without commitment. I often say about when you move to a new area to go date the gyms around you, because every gym has a different energy, a different vibe, a different, yeah, it's just different, right? So go around and date all the gyms. And so same
Yep.
thing is with the hobbies, is go around and try new things, like, pickleball. People talk about that all the time. I've never done that. And they have here like some sort of, I think it's frisbee golf or something. Like there's all kinds of really cool things that, and I feel like tennis is having a big comeback too. And maybe I'm just hearing about it more, but man, tennis looks like really hard. Super
Oh,
fun. I'm like, I could try that once. And my husband and I, there's a place that he loves to take me once in a while. And it's reminiscent for him. It's a sentimental. His dad used to take him there, and it's a bar. But I had a pool table, and all the balls and everything were out, and nobody was playing. And he's like, let's go play. I'm like, I've never played. And I felt like this little child come out in me, probably that 8 or 9 year old that's like, I've never played that. I can't do that. And I noticed it, and I was like, interesting. that's fun. And I was like, will you show me? And it just really allowed this vulnerability to come out and just play and be silly and I learned stuff too. And ever since, and we just played while our food was being made, and we didn't finish or anything. We just kind of a few balls here and there. But afterwards, ever since, I kind of been thinking about it. I was like, I kind of want to know how to do that more. No, I do have a very competitive spirit about me. So, but it was just fun to see him. And then of course I teased him afterwards because he's very good. I was like, is there anything you're not good at?
Nope, that's said often in my house as my husband learns to become a helicopter pilot because he can just do all the things. He just
Yeah.
no effort. He just innately knows how to do it all. But yeah, I think that the whole back to the control thing and getting it right, and we actually talk about it here in my house with just with cup kids as kids and like the expectation of perfection and I tell them often like no one told you how to do these things, like why do you think that you're supposed to just in your cells just know how, but the bar of expectation and perfection is really interesting, and we're really trying to like that's not expected of you. If I impose that on you, I apologize, but you don't, let's take that off their expectation list. It's just much more fun because no one knows how to play billiards coming out of someone's womb. So really, unless you played a lot as a kid or goofed around, like no one knows how to play pool. Like it's not a thing.
No, I love that. Like I love that you're very open and you're having conversations with your kids and it's so like I currently my girls are in their 20s and we have discussions and conversations. I'm meeting with my oldest tomorrow and I know that we're going to have conversations to talk about things and there's going to be things that I'm like but I love that she has that trust and that safety, right? I bring that safety, and that's what I hear and what you're showing too is when we give them that safety, that safe place to share and talk and no judgment, right? That no expectations, not wanting you to be perfect, especially when you first try anything, that's going to be messy. And that's how we learn. That's the funny part. That's where the humor is, just like learning how to drive stick. That's I remember um, I was a period of 15 years that I didn't have a manual car. And then I got a manual car and picked my daughter up at school at high school, my oldest, and the car dies. And I mean, she wanted to crawl underneath the seat, I mean, that's funny, I'm like, I'm relearning this. This is again, I'm very rusty. Sorry this had to happen at your school. But it's the funniness, it's making light of it and seeing it as, I'm sure it was mortifying for her, but we can laugh about it now and we can be silly about it. And that's how we learn. That's how we grow, is in that discomfort and like, oh, I'm not going to do that again.
And making light of it, I think, really gives it that the levity makes it not a core memory of a bad thing. I think that a lot of us we already carry it all by ourselves, and we don't need the added pressure of like, yep, that was the nail in the cross. That you are definitely just dead to every other high school that heard it. Like there's like it's just like it's 4 days later, it's literally a joke. Yeah, my mom did that thing, and we all move on. But it was like at the moment, back to that 90 seconds, it just feels like it's your whole life. Someone said today, like if you had the ability to see your life and the past or in the future as it was the moment you said, such big things really aren't big if you can look at the end and look back like, oh, that thing I thought was monumentous and ending wasn't at all. And that perspective shift has just been really fun to see. But I think that if we still play board games in this house, and
Yep.
and I think that having fun is just a thing that needs to be continued forever and that we lose it, and I don't know why, and we just need to bring more comedy jokes or more funny videos or whatever. But like the levity to me is such an important part that we seem to lose as we get older.
Yeah. I think that we lose that fun, right? I love that you share about games. Same with our house. We have all types of games, and card games end up being kind of the thing that we end up gravitating to. But I read something a while back about how we have such a broad imagination and we're so deep in our imagination and creativity. Like you can ask a 5 and 6 year old, show me something that you've created recently. And they're going to bring out, their picture that they colored that's on their refrigerator or something that they created. And to them, it's, so magnificent and incredible. and I have, not in this space, but in my other space, I have two things that my daughter's created for me. One's a mug and one's a rock, that was painted with eyeballs and stuff. And so their creativity is so big and the imagination is so amazing. And then there's some place in around middle school or high school where our imagination turns into worry, stress, anxiety, and that's where the energy goes, right? Again,
Yeah.
that survival brain kicks in and the negative bias, and it just dominates our thoughts and takes control of us, and it seems so big. Everything seems so big, and I love what you're sharing is that when we move back into the play and the fun and creativity and being with one another physically versus virtually, it really rebuilds that connection and bond that we crave. We crave that. And so we have that very much in common in our households, but that's what
Yeah.
we
I
do
love that.
when they come over is let's play games.
That's fun. I feel like that builds that emotional maturity, and then we're no longer 6 and 8. It's like then we can maybe get to double digits, but to me, that is what builds that resiliency and that fun and that safety. And that what you're talking about is this vulnerable space to be silly and fun. And I feel like that is what has your kids coming back to talk to you. And I feel like that is what builds family unity. And I think that, we're doing it right. We're not the 6 and 8. I think we're definitely double digits somewhere.
Although I will say, I tell my kids all the time, the roles are reversed. Now I'm the kid and you're the adult. So maybe that's what that means. I'm gonna have to look at that. Maybe their emotional maturity has advanced past me.
I
Yeah,
love
so
that.
I don't know. I think it's funny. I again like to bring humor and lightness to our conversations and check in with them, and that safety. Like I think that that's the big takeaway this chapter. I think, for if I could just summarize it in a nutshell, it's just really about learning to know what's in your lane, know what's in your family members' lanes, and being able to be untriggerable, learning to evolve and self-regulate, be emotionally independent. I think that's the big thing for this chapter. um and yeah, so I love exploring this book super slowly because it's allowing me to come back and really digest it. And then I have these stories and these images and these thoughts that come out. And then this dialogue with you today and everybody else, it's like, I love hearing your version, what's coming up for you, because that again reinforces it for me and everybody else. So I appreciate
No,
you
this has been great. The same.
being willing to show up a little late and hang in there. And
Of course. No, no problem.
this is not like me either. Like I said, I usually have my watch and alarms and everything 10 minutes
Yeah, that's why I was
before.
worried. I'm like, this is, yeah, definitely worried about you. I'm like, there's a problem. Something's wrong.
Yeah, you're gonna welfare check on Catherine.
Yeah, I'm glad you're okay.
Thank you, Shayna, for coming in, and I'll see you again in what, 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks.
All
Right.
right. I'll see you then. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.